Okay, so my name's Aryeh Gurewitz, and basically they just asked me to substitute for Rabbi Glick tonight, so do the best I can. I actually filled in for Rabbi Majeski the last 2 weeks, so tonight's show will be a little bit of a hemshech from what I taught the last couple of weeks, but it'll also stand alone just fine. Basically, the common thread of what I've been talking about the last couple of shirim. Everybody's listening? Yeah. Anybody who wants to follow along inside for the shir, we have some copies over here.
2 papers, 2 pages. Continue.
So basically what I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks in the shirim is that in the sichas of Nun Aleph and Nun Beis, the sicha can be so long that sometimes we are trying so hard to finish the sicha by the end of the week, and there could be a heira at the end of the sicha that's one paragraph or one footnote or one little detail, and if we open it up and take the time to think about the heira, so we'll find that the heira could be a life-changing heira. And so 2 weeks ago we spoke about that with Parshas Chayesara Tafshin Nun Beis, what it means when the Rebbe says that the shar of the shlichus is Kabbalas Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. Both what does it mean the shar and what does it mean Kabbalas Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. And last week we spoke about Parshas Balak, a Bein HaMetzarim Sicha, where the Rebbe talks about Limud Inyan Geulah Mashiach and clarifies what did the Rebbe mean a few weeks earlier in Tazrei Mitzvah when the Rebbe said the Derech HaYishara is to learn Inyan Geulah Mashiach. What is the goal of that learning? The Rebbe speaks about it at the end of the Sicha of Balak. So we spoke about that last week, and both of those shirim are online on the website for these Mashiach shirim, learnmashiach.com, for anybody who's interested in those. So tonight we'll try to do the same thing with the Sicha of Sicha Vaeschanan. And full disclosure, I did not yet learn the entire Sicha this year, so the earlier part of the Sicha is not fresh in my mind, but it works out pretty well because it's one of these Sichas where the Rebbe splits it up into sections with a star every few oisias. So we'll just learn together the last piece of the Sicha, which starts off with the words Ubinegei L'Poel. So if anybody wants to follow along inside, we have copies over here. And what we'll do is we'll just read through and we'll try to open it up and really realize how the Rebbe is telling us something very practical and maybe something very different than what we're used to seeing in the earlier Sichas and Maimarim. Okay, and if anybody has any comments, you should feel free to jump in. It's an open discussion. It's not a lecture. Okay? So the Rebbe says like this. Oisid Aleph, Ubinegei L'Poel. Kevan shenim soim al saf ha'geula amitis v'ashlema sheba yiyu kol inyanim ba'efen shel bli gvul. Since we're standing on the doorstep of the Geulah amitis v'ashlema, where everything is going to be bli gvul, so tzrich aliyas ha'te'ima ba'erev Shabbos shetev litem mikol tavshil v'tavshil. There needs to be a taste, like we always on Erev Shabbos, we taste from every food that we're going to have on Shabbos. So there needs to be a taste, meha bli gvul deha geula. We need to do some kind of very practical thing called tasting the bli gvul of the geula. How do we do that? Al yedei ha'yisafa b'inyanei ha'torah mitzvahs ba'efen shelamayla mimedida v'agbala, by adding a Torah mitzvahs in a way which is higher than limitations. So far we've seen just that the Rebbe wants us to add in Torah and mitzvahs. But in more detail, like it says by Tu B'Av, we have to start adding the limit of Torah in the nights. Hein nigla de Torah, v'hein pnimis Torah. Kela limit ein Yaakov, Agadav Shabbat Torah, Sharev Sedes Torah, Genuzim Ba. V'oid v'ikar limit pnimis Torah, K'divrei HaRizal, Sheyem Ha'ilula Shalei v'chamisha Menachamav. Shabbatayros elu ha'achreinim mutter mitzvah legalei seis ha'chachma u'b'miyuchad la'achrei shenisbara b'teres ha'chasidus v'eifin sheshayach la'avana v'asagad kol echad v'echad mitzvah. So far, the Hayra is not something so unusual or so different from what we've seen in the Rebbe's other Sichas. The Rebbe is telling us we have to add in limited Torah, add in Kiyam mitzvahs, all parts of the Torah, nigla the Torah, pnimius the Torah. But in the next paragraph, we start to get into something a little bit unique. There needs to be a special emphasis on the addition in Limud Torah and the concepts about Geulah. Hein b'nigla de Torah, both in Nigla ubefrat b'sifrei shel Rambam shekol gama halachos sheyachos tezman Geulah. Right, especially in the Sefer of the Rambam, which includes all of the halachos in the Torah, including halachos that are shaykh to the time of Geulah. Kamei halachos beis habechira. Shalamudim Za'ata B'mei Bein HaMitzarim, like Hilchos Beis Bechira, we learned in the 3 weeks. V'chein Hilchos Malachim, U'Melcham Haseyam, U'Melch HaMashiach, right, the last 2 chapters of Hilchos Malachim. V'chein B'pnimiyas HaTorah. And also, the Inyan Geulah Mashiach that's in Pnimiyas HaTorah. Sheneisav Lakach, this is a very, very interesting statement that is coming up. Sheneisav Lakach, Sheklolos Halimit Pnimiyas HaTorah, Mekarev Es HaGeula. That in addition to this, that in general, the learning of Pnimiyas HaTorah brings the Geulah closer. Like it says, B'hai Chibura Dilach, Teirasa Shal Rashbi, Yifken Bey Min Galusa Berachamei. Right, with this Sefer of Rashbi, referring to the Zayar, will go out of Golus with Rachamim. In addition to that, Yesh Ili Miyuchad, there's a special advantage. There's a special advantage of those parts of Pnimiyas HaTorah that are explaining concepts of Geulah. Now, I just want to point out a couple of things. I have a lot of discussions with people about Mashiach. That's my main claim to teach about Mashiach. What do I know about Mashiach? But I try to talk to a lot of people and I see what people think. I talk to people who know more than me. I talk to people that know less than me. And I try to figure out what's going on in people's heads with Mashiach. And one of the questions I always run into is, how could you say that we need to put an emphasis on Limud and Inyan Geulah Mashiach? All Chassidus is Inyan Geulah Mashiach. The whole Inyan Shal Teres Chassidus. Chassidus is Yechida, it's Pnimiyas HaTorah, it's Shem and Shevet Torah. The whole Chassidus is Mashiach. In so many places the Rebbe says that. So I always answered, until I learned this Sicha, I always answered, if you look in Tazriyah Metzorah Tafshin and Aleph, the Rebbe puts a footnote that says, first of all, in addition to using the terminology Limud Inyan Geulah Mashiach, which the fact that the Rebbe used a different term, that itself means that there's something different. The Rebbe could have just said learn more Chassidus. But the Rebbe also puts a footnote there that says to look up in Sifrei Mafteches Erech Mashiach, Erech Geulah, which means that within Chassidus itself, the Rebbe wants us to make sure that we're looking up and learning about those specific topics. And here also you see the same point made even more clear, not even in a footnote or anything. The Rebbe just says very clearly that in addition to that great advantage of Pnimiyas HaTorah, there's a special advantage in that Pnimiyas HaTorah, which is explaining concepts of Geulah. In other words, there's something even more powerful, there's something even more special. And we're not putting down at all Chas V'Shalom Pnimiyas HaTorah. But even within the greatness of Pnimiyas HaTorah itself, the Rebbe is saying there's something special about those parts of Pnimiyas HaTorah that talk about Geulah. And Al Derech said we can answer another question that also comes up in a lot of these discussions that I have about Mashiach. The people sometimes will say, so you want us to just learn Inyan Geulah Mashiach all day long, and we're not going to learn the Gemara anymore, we're not going to learn Halacha anymore, all we need to do is learn Inyan Geulah Mashiach, because that's what the Rebbe says, is Derech HaYishara. So you must mean, when you say that we don't have to do anything else, right? So I say, obviously that's not true. And if you look here in the Sicha, again, if you learn this closely, you see that the Rebbe is addressing that. Because in the first paragraph, the Rebbe said we have to add in all Limud Torah, from all parts of the Torah. And then the Rebbe came and said, V'hadgosham yuchedes, a special emphasis within our general increase in the whole Torah mitzvahs. Within that, there has to be special treatment and special focus and special emphasis on these concepts of Inyan Geulah Mashiach.
So that, like, we were learning this year, we always had cookies and drinks. And, special emphasis that we don't put lately. The cookies.
So there, we'll see soon that they're supposed to be Ma'adanim Mitzvim Ka'afar. We'll get to that soon. So this is a pretty simple point, but I'm just pointing out that sometimes we run into these questions about how to balance the different parts of Avodas Hashem with this new thing that the Rebbe is coming out with of Limud Inyan Geulah Mashiach. And you see here that the Rebbe, if you learn it closely, is addressing it very clearly. We want to add in everything. We always have to add in everything. But within that adding of everything, so we have to add especially in learning Torah about Mashiach, and especially Pnimiyas Torah about Mashiach, which the Rebbe distinguishes from other Pnimiyas Torah, which is not necessarily explaining about Mashiach. I know it's a very simple point, but I can't emphasize it enough because it's a very practical point that the Rebbe is saying makes a huge difference. Okay, moving along, and we'll get to something a little bit deeper. The Rebbe says, "V'matayv shalimud zeh yiyah ba'ofen da'asara tzibur sheyeshvim b'yashvus ukvius ba'eskim ba'ofen shal esek b'Torah." So it would be very good, says the Rebbe, if this learning would be 10 people, tzibur, right? That's sitting together and esek b'Torah, which happens to be what we're doing, Baruch Hashem. The Devar Mishnah the Shabbos that, like the instruction that comes from the Perek and Pirkei Avos that they were learning that Shabbos, Perek Shlishi, right, which mentions this thing of learning in a group of 10. Shagam Remes Legula Hashlishi Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi, that the third Perek of Pirkei Avos hints to the third Geulah and the third Beis Hamikdash. Shal Yadam Naseis Hanachama Bekiflayim Al Bayis Rishon Bayis Sheni. That through them becomes the comfort, because it's Shabbos Nachamus, so the whole Sicha there was talking about comfort for the first Beis Hamikdash and the second Beis Hamikdash.
The footnote 130 is saying they should have the Hayrah of the Bar Mishnah is blind in the Ba'asar. You have a bit again,
right, but it says Shalimud Zeh.
Yeah.
This limud that we just said. So in other words, there's one part that we have to increase in this limud Torah of these topics, and then it'll be very good if also we fulfill the Hirah of Pirkei Avos that it should be in a group of 10, which the Rebbe also mentioned in the earlier Sicha of Tazrim Torah. Now the next ois, we'll go a little bit deeper. The Rebbe says, "V'yesh lo heisif limud v'hira b'shaychas le'inyan ha'geula gam me'ascholas perek shlishi." We should add a lesson and a hira b'shaychas to the geula, also from the beginning of perek shlishi. That again, that perek of Pirkei Avos they were learning that Shabbos, where it says histakel b'shleisha devarim. You should gaze histakel at 3 things. So the Rebbe sort of cuts off the rest of the Mishnah and wants to learn Hira just from the very beginning of Histakel b'Shleisha Devarim. So Shleisha Devarim, the Rebbe says, what's the Shleisha Devarim? Shleisha Devarim stam yesh leimar, we can say Shugam Reimez Legula Shlishi Su Beis Hamikdash Shlishi, that this is also hinting to the third Geulah and the third Beis Hamikdash. Geulah Meshulasha Su Beis Hamikdash Meshulash, a triple Geulah and a triple Beis Hamikdash. Shekelo Beis Hamaylas the Geulah Rishenu V'Shnia Bayis Rishon V'Sheni V'Shneim Yachad. That what makes it a triple Geulah and a triple Beis Hamikdash is that it includes both the Mailas of the first and second Geulah and the first and second Beis Hamikdash, which the Rebbe explained at length in the Sicha of Matas Maseh a few weeks before. Now this part is really what I want to talk about, because in these 2 paragraphs here, the Rebbe says something very practical that I think is very unique and very powerful. So the Rebbe says, "V'histakel b'shleisha devarim, histakel daikon." We should gaze at 3 things, specifically gazing. And what does this word histakel mean? Shemeira al ha'in v'hisboinus ba'amaka yiseira. It means it shows on iyun, concentration, and hisboinus, reflection, contemplation, ba'amaka yiseira, and a lot of depth. In other words, before we go, actually, be'inyan ha'geula shlishi is Beis Hamikdash shlishi. So before we go further, what the Rebbe is saying is limud inyan ha'geula Mashiach is not something that is limited to a text message or a vart after davening or any of those things, even though all those things are great. But the Rebbe doesn't want us to only gain more bits and bits of information about Mashiach. The Rebbe wants us to be mistakel, and be mistakel means to think deeply. To put the koiches of your seichel into it and reflect on these things in a deep way. Specifically in Inyan Geulah Mashiach. And the Rebbe brings it out. The Rebbe brings it out in the footnote 131. It says, "See the Shulchan Aruch al Merazakin or Rechaim Sim Kuf Chav Ches," which is the halachas of Birkas Kohanim, and they bring down here the words of the Alter Rebbe in this sefer that I have with the Pianuchim that brings what the Rebbe is quoting in the footnotes. So the Alter Rebbe says there in the Shulchan Aruch, "B'shasha Kohanim mevarchim ha'am le'yabitu ha'am." Sorry, the copies aren't going to have this, so it's just a small piece. So it says that at the time that the Kohanim are doing Birkas Kohanim, the people should not, the Kohanim should not look at the people. And therefore, since they're not supposed to look at the people, they're noyeg in many places to put a talus over the faces and the hands of the Kohanim, so that they can't look at the people, and the people shouldn't either look at them. But then he says, they never said it's asr except to gaze, but just to see, if you just happen to see it, muteres, that's allowed. But we're still noyeg to be careful not to even see. But in other words, halacha makes a distinction between histaklus and re'iyah. Re'iyah is more casual. I just happen to see the kohanim while they're doing birkas kohanim. That's technically me'ikir adin, it's mutter. But to be mistaka, which means to look at them and to concentrate on them and to focus on them, that is asr. So you see, halacha makes a nafkamina between these two types of looking, and the Rebbe uses this to bring out how he wants us to think about Inyan Geulah Mashiach, that it has to be in a way of histaklus, which is iyun, hisbaininus, ba'maka yisera. It's focusing deeply and thinking deeply about Inyan Geulah Mashiach. Okay, moving along. Shleisha Devarim. The sentence continues that this is the Shleisha Devarim. When there's this Stakel Shleisha Devarim, that means the Geulah and the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi. And now the Rebbe tells us, again, it's only a couple of lines, but if we stop and think and open up these few lines, we'll see what the Rebbe is saying. Now the Rebbe is going to tell us how we're supposed to feel at the time when we're doing this beinunus. In other words, the Rebbe first gave us hadracha in the seichel and the thought, and now the Rebbe is telling us how it's supposed to feel emotionally. So the Rebbe says, mitoich tzipiyah v'hishtoikas miuchedes, that all of this should be coming from a place of longing and a special desire. Echaka loy b'chol yem sheyaveh, right? Echaka means we're eagerly awaiting, we're longing for him. Right? So, in other words, while we're going through this hisbaininus, we are supposed to be feeling in a deep way a longing for the Geulah. Sheyaveh b'chol yem, that every day we're waiting for him to come. B'yem zeh mamish, and we're expecting him to come on this day. So this thought about the Geulah is supposed to arouse in us a feeling that we really believe that it could happen, and we really want that it should happen today. And especially, so all of that was just stam. But now the Rebbe is saying, especially when the Rebbe has told us that we're standing on Safa Geulah, like it's explained at length in all of the Sichos of Nunaf and Beis, that this histaklis needs to be even stronger. So this is a short paragraph that if you're trying to finish the whole Sicha, which I'm not discouraging trying to finish the whole Sicha, but I'm just saying when you're going through fast and trying to learn the whole Sicha, you could fly right through these paragraphs. But if you think about it, this is a Hira. You don't find, I personally have not found in too many Maimarim of Chassidus, maybe V'atat Tetzaveh, and even that, it's a discussion a little bit what V'atat Tetzaveh is really trying to say. But I haven't seen in too many places where the Rebbe is saying specifically to stop and be misbeinin on Inyan Geulah Mashiach. Normally you hear about hisbaininus all the time. You hear about kunshas hatefillah and kunshas ha'avodah. If you learn kunshas ha'avodah, it doesn't tell you to be misbeinin on Inyan Geulah Mashiach. It doesn't tell you to visualize the Geulah. It tells you to think about certain things that are going to bring you to Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. That's traditionally what hisbaininus was all about. And here the Rebbe is taking the same idea of hisbaininus and saying to be misbeinin specifically on Inyan Geulah Mashiach, so that it'll bring about this tzipiyah and hishteikus. To me, it's a very practical difference. So now the Rebbe continues, and the Rebbe says, "V'yesh leimar sha'estaklos b'inyanei hageulah shlishis u'beis hamikdash shlishi shleisha devarim." This is staklos, this deep hisbaininus and deep reflection. Pa'elis shleimus b'chol inyanei ha'aveda she'neklolim b'shleisha devarim. This hisbaininus is not an isolated thing that we have to balance out with the other areas of Avodas Hashem. This hisbonenus will actually bring shleimus to all of the other avodah that's included in the Shleisha Devarim, which the Rebbe asks Shleisha Devarim. The Rebbe titles a little differently. Shleisha Akavim the Torah Avodah Gemilas Chasadim. Shekiyuma ma'idei Shleisha Levushim the Machshava Dibur Ma'aseh Sha'avodah Eina Ba'efen Shal Chalkos Ela Ba'efen Shal Bligvul Mitzad Heder Agvala Yeshna Shleimus B'chol Akavim. Just wanted to finish the sentence. We'll talk about that part more in a second. But the Rebbe is saying, this is another thing that comes up in a lot of discussions about Inyan Geulah Mashiach. There's a concern if we'll get too much into Inyan Geulah Mashiach, so maybe other things are going to be lacking. Maybe if I'm going to put too much energy into this hisbonenus on Inyan Geulah Mashiach, I'm going to have weaknesses in other areas. So the Rebbe is saying, if you'll do this hisbonenus, it's poyelas hashleimus. This is what brings the other things to their shleimus. And this, if you would, no pressure, but if anybody would listen to the Shir on Chai Sarah, when the Rebbe talks about the Shar, the Rebbe also brings out this point over there, that if you engage in the mitzvah, which is your Shar, your Zahir Tfei, your Kavana Pratis, those are the shyness that the Rebbe uses over there, so those things will bring the other aspects of Torah and Avodah to their shleimus. So this is something we see in more than one Sicha, and I think you see it in the Sicha of Balak also, that the Rebbe says, if you will fill your mind with Havana Vasaga of Inyan Geulah Mashiach and be misbeinin in a way of das, so also there the Rebbe says it'll spill over to your midas and your machshava dibur ma'aseh, and you'll behave in a way which is fitting for a yid who's standing al safa Geulah. So in more than one Sicha we see this idea that by putting an emphasis on Inyan Geulah Mashiach, so it will bring the other aspects of Avodah to our shleimus. In other words, it's not a competition between Inyan Geulah Mashiach and the other aspects of Avodah. The Rebbe is saying, if we invest in Inyan Geulah Mashiach, that will inspire us and that will lift us up to perform the other aspects of Avodah b'shleimus. And the Rebbe brings us out even further in the Ha'ara 134. If you notice in the Pnim of the Sicha, the Rebbe only said about Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim, which is basically Asay Toif. So in the footnote, the Rebbe says, "V'al derech zeh b'negei l'sur meira." It's a similar thing with regard to sur meira, turning away from bad. Kehemshech HaMishnah v'ein ata ba liyidei avera, like the next piece of the Mishnah says. After Histankel b'shleisha devarim, it says v'ein ata ba liyidei avera. You're not going to come into an avera. So now the Rebbe teaches v'ein ata ba daika. You're not going to come, which means b'derech memela. It means automatically through this hisbonenus of deep hisbonenus on Inyan Geulah Mashiach. The Rebbe is literally using the word memela. Automatically, you will not come into a situation of bad, without any need to be involved in negating the ra. In other words, this is something that has so much power that it lifts you up automatically. It reminds me of L'chachila River. The Rebbe is saying you won't need to be involved in shlilas hara if you are doing this hisbonenus. And which ra are we talking about? So you might think ra means averas. So the Rebbe says, "Vafilu loy liyidei avera." Not even, sorry, it even says averas. It even says you won't come to avera. So the Rebbe's medayik that it says, "Vafilu loy liyidei avera." You won't come to the hands of avera, or you won't come. I don't know how it doesn't type so smooth in English, honestly. But the way the Rebbe explains it, "Shegam hadvarim sheichelum lahavi liyidei avera." Even those things which could bring you to an avera. In other words, not the avera itself, but something that's going to later bring you to an avera. Kamei taivas heter. Nasim mushlalim b'derech memela. They become negated automatically. In other words, with this hisbonenus, deep hisbonenus, histaklis at the Geulah, you pile shleimus in Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim. You take care of averas and taivas heter b'derech memela. Those are the Rebbe's words. And it all comes mitzad ha'histaklis b'inyanei ha'Geulah. It all comes from this gazing deeply in this deep contemplation of the Geulah. Me'ein v'dugma samayim v'matzah d'yimei Mashiach, which is a me'ein v'dugma, a taste, a sample of Yimei Mashiach. K'psak den Rambam b'siyum v'chaisim sifrei Mishnah Torah, like the Rambam paskins at the end of Mishnah Torah, sheba eisei azman kol ha'ma'adanim mitzuyim ka'afar. All of the good things, all of the sweets, all the pleasures of the world will be found like dust, and this is where I promised you we would talk about the cookies that you mentioned. Ka'afar daika, that they're like dust. In what way are they like dust? She'ein leishum chashivas. that there's no importance to them. So when you're mistaqbal at the Geulah, you realize. What do you realize? What makes you stay away from Avedas and stay away from Sicha Vaeschanan, from this Istakus of Geulah? It's that you realize that these things are not important. When you realize what the Geulah is and you're focused on what the Geulah is, you realize that the Taivas and Avedas, things are not worth being involved in. They're like afar, they're dust, worthless. Why? Because you realize that at that time, the whole involvement of the world, the only thing that's going to be worth doing is knowing Hashem. So in these few paragraphs, the Rebbe basically tells us to learn a lot about Mashiach. Don't just learn it, take the time to be mispoinen on it, to be iyun, and that will be poil shleimus in the whole of Avodas Hashem, Torah Aveda, Gemilas Chasadim, Sur Meirah, Taivas Heter, the whole works. It's a complete derech in Avodas Hashem packed into 2 paragraphs. And it's an incredible thing. And it's just, all it takes is taking the time to look carefully at the Rebbe's words and realize that the Rebbe is opening this derech for us. Exactly. Right. It's true. That's the learning be'iyun, and then, yeah, exactly. So, we only have a couple more minutes. Basically, I would recommend reading through to the end of the Sicha, not to mention the beginning of the Sicha. The next ois, I'll just summarize. The Rebbe says that since the Rebbe spoke earlier about on Tu B'Av, that we have to start adding Limud Torah. So the Rebbe says now we have to also be mistakel at our hachalatas that we already made about the learning that we're going to do after Chamisha Asar B'Av. And at first when I read it, you'll read it yourself and you'll decide if you agree with me or not, but at first when I read it, I thought it was 2 separate hayrois. One, the Rebbe says, be mistakel at the Geulah, and then afterwards the Rebbe says to take a look at your hachlatas and see if your hachlatas are good hachlatas. And then I realized, or at least I think I realized, and again, anybody could disagree, but I think that there are really 2 things. In other words, the Rebbe is saying, Histachlis at the Geulah brings your whole Aveda to Shleimus. And the next place the Rebbe says, take a look at your hachlatas that you already made, look closely at them and see if they're good hachlatas. So what's pshat? I would suggest, derech efshar, that what the Rebbe is saying is, now that I just told you about this great mila of Limud Geulah Mashiach and Histachlis at the Geulah, so make sure that those hachlatas that you took about Limud Torah, they're going to include in Geulah Mashiach and things that you can use for this hispoinenus. Because I just told you how this hispoinenus is going to bring you to Tachlis Shleimus in all aspects of Avodah. I think maybe that's, at least, I'm not saying that's the only thing that the Rebbe is saying, but I think it's definitely part of what the Rebbe is saying, that these 2 things are connected. And especially because the Sicha finishes off, if you look at the beginning of Yadalid, V'hi Ratzin Sheme'as Tachlis, Ian V'hispoinenus Binyanei Geulah Shlishi, so basically Mikdash Shlishi, Stachel B'Shayz Dvarim, Nizke take it from Yad, Lireis HaGeulah HaShlishi, so basically Mikdash Shlishi, B'Pel Mamish, we take it from Yad Mamish. So the Rebbe finishes off, after spending one ois going away from the Histachlis of the Geulah and saying you should look at your hachlatas and see if they're good hachlatas, then the Rebbe all of a sudden comes back and says, he writes that through the Histachlis, that's going to bring the Geulah. So that's also part of why I think, because of how it's before and after, I think when the Rebbe says to look at your hachlatas and see if they're good hachlatas, that the Rebbe is really saying, so see if in your plan to increase in Limud Torah, you're talking including this Limud Geulah Mashiach. That's already not as befedish. The other stuff I was saying before that is just the Rebbe's words. That's already adding my own interpretation a little bit, so you take it or leave it. And we'll finish off with that, and I just want to say that we should come b'pel mamish, talking to myself also, that we should take this and realize that we have to push it, take a sefer that talks about Geulah Mashiach, take a mimer that talks about Geulah Mashiach, put the time to try to understand it before davening, take a few minutes and be misbaining. Push it, let's try it out and see how it goes, and see if it's as powerful as the Rebbe says. And hopefully just the first step in doing all of that will already bring the Geulah mitzvah.